The Arado Ar-96 is a single-engine, low-wing monoplane of all-metal construction, designed and produced by the German aircraft manufacturer Arado Flugzeugwerk. It was the Luftwaffe's standard advanced trainer throughout the Second World War. The origins of the Ar-96 can be traced back to the mid-1930s, and the shortcomings of the Focke-Wulf W-55W, a biplane float plane intended for the trainer role. During early 1936, the Reich Ministry issued a tender to produce a modern trainer aircraft. Arado opted to produce its own response. A design team at the company, headed by the aeronautical engineer Walter Blohm, promptly designed a monoplane aircraft that featured all-metal construction and a low-mounted cantilevered wing. It was designed with Arado's standard forward-set tailfin, which reduced the occurrence of spins. The aircraft was envisaged to perform standard training, night flying, aerobatics, radio operator training, aerial reconnaissance, and even bombing missions. To suit its principal use as a trainer, the design of the aircraft incorporated various safety features. All of the flight control surfaces were aerodynamically balanced and could be readily adjusted mid-flight. The flaps would automatically deploy based on airspeed if the trainee pilot forgot to do so, while the main landing gear and brakes were hydraulically powered. Manual actuation via a hand pump was available in the event of a hydraulic failure. Was completed, modifications proved to be necessary. A continuous spar design replaced the tubular steel bridge arrangement, initially used to link the wings, fuselage, and landing gear, while the horn counterbalance on the rudder was also eliminated. The outward retracting landing gear was replaced by wider tracked, designed to fulfill training safety requirements, while automatic slats were also added along with increased canopy glazing. The first prototype was initially powered by a single Argus As-10C engine, capable of producing up to 240 horsepower. During 1937, testing of the first batch of prototypes proceeded positively. That same year, Ernst Adat, chief of the technical office, TM'd, the development wing of the Reich Ministry of Aviation, flew one of the early Ar-96s. The second prototype incorporated numerous changes, based on experiences of the first. The third prototype was equipped with the newly developed Argus As-410 engine, which was initially capable of 360 horsepower. This engine, along with the adoption of a variable pitch propeller, was observed to have considerably increased the aircraft's performance. During 1939, an initial batch of Ar-96A aircraft was produced, powered by the weaker Argus As-10 engine, largely due to insufficient numbers of As-410 engines being available at that time. This batch was subsequently followed by the Ar-96B, the first major production series, which were equipped the more powerful Argus As-410 engine. Once quantity production of the type had been established, Arado's test group studied various means to more economically produce the aircraft. It was hoped that production time could be roughly halved from 110 hours to 60 to 65. One approach, aimed at reducing individual part count and shortening production time, involved the use of a hydraulic extrusion press and an electric roll welding process on the tailplane's subassembly manufacture. This necessitated the use of large quantities of relatively expensive duralumin sheeting, as well as being a deviation from the semi-monocoque approach. One cost reduction was achieved via the use of smaller than standard panel sheeting, increased automation, and the use of snap riveting was also studied by the company. In late 1939, the first deliveries of Ar-96s to German flight training schools took place. The first Ar-96B1 South were delivered. The first properly equipped trainers followed months later. Unlike the following Ar-96B2 model, all Ar-96B1 aircraft were unarmed. The Ar-96 quickly became commonplace at fighter pilot schools, where they were typically used for advanced night and instrument flying training. They were frequently described as being relatively rugged, easy to fly and maintain, and technologically up-to-date. During the Battle of Berlin, on the evening of the 28th of April 1945, test pilot Hannah Reich flew with then Luftwaffe head General Feldmarschall Robert Ritter von Grimm out from Berlin in an Ar-96 trainer from an improvised airstrip in the Tiergarten while under Soviet fire. Despite the end of the conflict in May 1945, manufacturing of the Ar-96 continued for some years afterwards in the newly freed Czechoslovakia, where the type was locally designated as the obviously to be French production of a model of the aircraft, under the local designation of SIPA S-10, also proceeded. Further developments included the SIPA S-11 armed version and the SIPA S-12, a metal version. 188 of all versions were produced until 1958. The S-11 was operated with some success in Algeria, where it was commonly armed with machine guns, rockets, and light bombs. That's all we have time for today. Until next time, goodbye.